What's up, guys? Welcome to Nutmegged, the podcast where Yank and a Brit talk about the beautiful game from across the pond. I'm Andrew, representing the Stars and Stripes, but I am not alone today in that representation. I have a lovely guest that will be joining us who is also conveniently located in Ohio, and not just Ohio, in Delaware. So we will talk about that. I will introduce Lindsey very formally, but of course I got to throw it over to Faisal because he's out here living his best life across the pond in the UK. Faze, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm outnumbered today, but I am excited. I'm excited to get the show on the road. Again, we love bringing people in, participants in, and we've got a really great interviewee today, so I'm really looking forward to that. Andrew, who we got? Throw us. Let us know. Let the viewers, listeners know who you got today.
Yes, this guest is Lindsey Whitmore. She has a very dear position in my heart because she is one of our Delaware Rising players. But before that, she attended Olentangy Berlin, so one of the Olentangy powerhouses in the sphere of Delaware, so where myself is from in Ohio as well. She actually played 3 sports in high school, if you would know. She was a soccer player, of course, but also track and field and cross country. If you watched her on the pitch, you would know she is a runner, so that would make sense that she would also do 2 running sports. She was named second team all conference in soccer as a senior when playing at Berlin, but that was not the end of her soccer career. She ended up going over to Otterbein University, where she is currently playing and attending. She is from Delaware, of course, but like if you're getting really specific, like inside of Delaware, there are like little towns and places as well. Galena is the specific town of where dear Lindsey is from. And on her soccer resume, like I had mentioned earlier, she is a Delaware Rising player, but not only that, she was one of our captains this year in our first historic year as a women's team. She was our leading goal scorer, and I think actually the league's leading goal scorer on top of that as well. And to boot, we ended up winning the championship with Lindsey holding down the fort as our captain, and she's actually wearing that beautiful champion shirt as well. Love the representation. Lindsey, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
I'm good. I'm good. How are you guys?
Good.
Fan freaking tastic, especially since you have joined us as a guest on our dear podcast. So I'm gonna throw out a question really quick to get us started, and it's just more of like a simple thing. When Lindsey, you were younger, I just want to talk to you very quickly about your playing career as a kid. Now, the reason I ask this is because Faisal is, of course, from the UK. So he's going to have like a different experience of like youth soccer as we have in the US, which I envision yours is probably fairly similar to mine. So what was it like being a kid growing up and playing soccer? Did you even play soccer? Did you pick it up later in life? Where did it start for you?
Yeah, so I've played soccer since, basically my whole life. Like, you can usually start soccer like what, kindergarten? I started spring of my kindergarten year, and basically just never looked back. Now, I did try other sports, and I was not good at other sports, besides the running ones, of course. So, soccer and the running sports. I played soccer probably all the way up until like 4th grade. Then, like 4th and 5th grade, I joined like a more competitive league, but it was still a parent coach team. Did that for a year, and then it was just kind of club soccer from then until senior year. And now I'm college.
So you played a mix of club and high school. Did you do both of those at the same time?
So yes, but like not simultaneous. Like high school's in the fall, club would be
Right.
as soon as high school ended, up until high school started again. So
Right.
yes.
Was that like balance difficult? Did you find this is like something that I'm interested in because there's, as a coach, this interesting balance between club soccer and it getting prioritized over high school soccer, which in some instances makes sense. But as a high school coach, I always find that balance interesting because you would think that they would want to work together to help form the player to be the best they can be, especially because soccer, at least in Ohio, is not necessarily like a year-round sport. You are not typically on one team that functions year round. So what was that balance like for you? Was it easier to do, be on club and high school? Did you find one more beneficial than the other skill wise?
I personally never had issues with that balance because it just so happened like as soon as my club season ended, like I would usually have like a week and then my high school season would start, like going into summer conditioning. And then my high school team never made it far enough to interfere with a club season because that's like club season's usually like end of November is when they usually start that fall showcase before it gets too cold. Um, as like for which one's better, it's like kind of hard because club I feel like is definitely better for players to get that exposure that they need to make to play in college, but people tend to have a more enjoyable experience with high school soccer just because you're with all of your friends. And I don't want to say there's not like a huge stress on you in high school soccer, but it's definitely nothing like it's not the end of your career if you lose a game. Like it's not that big.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And kind of like same in the MLS too. Like you lose a game, like it is what it is. You're gonna still be at the top in the top league because there's no promotion relegation. I'll
Yeah.
yell about that at some other point in time. But yeah, thank you for that perspective, and that makes sense. But the last question, and I'll throw it to Faisal. But just continuing with the club versus high school, if you could have only played one, what would you prefer? It sounded like you would have picked like club for the playing ability.
Mhm. That's really hard because I really enjoyed my high school soccer experience. Like, there's some people
Good.
who high school soccer ruined their love for the sport, and mine was like the complete opposite. And I felt like my high school team personally, and I mean, I'm in Central Ohio. Central Ohio is extremely good at soccer. So it's not like my high school is going around like stomping on every other team. Like, we had every single game was competitive. So honestly, I'm probably gonna pick high school over club just because I feel like it's a much less there's not as much pressure. You have your entire school supporting you. Like everyone kind of I don't want to say everyone knows who you are, but like teachers know you play soccer and they understand that. But it's not really like the same in club soccer because you're just all part of one club and teachers don't really care when it comes to the club sports. So I think I'd probably pick high school soccer if I had to pick one over the other.
Nice. That's cool. I appreciate the perspective. And actually, being a high school coach, I appreciate that as well. I really think we need to create a system that like encompasses both club and high school and make it work together because you're so right. They're two different unique
Hmm.
experiences. And it is kind of cool being in high school. You play with your friends. You have this built-in fan base almost already as well. You have fun connections that can come out of that too. So if it really could support each other, I think that's
Hmm.
the ideal world. Hopefully, we're getting a little bit more toward that as well. But yeah, thank you for the perspective, especially from my coaching standpoint. I always appreciate kind of learning what players think on that level too. FaZe, what do you want to know about Lindsey Whitmore, captain
Yeah.
of Delaware Rising?
I was just going to say, it feels an absolute honor to be here. We appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. And actually, it's really fascinating for me to hear because, like I said, here in the UK, understanding more about how like soccer or football sort of in those areas, that youth era is really interesting, very different from how it is in the UK. So that's really fascinating for me to kind of hear from my side. What I wanted to kind of was bring it a little bit back. We're still, as you said, you're kind of choosing a team and as you were choosing to your sport, etc. In looking a bit more specific about football and soccer, in terms of your position, you say you like to run a lot. What made you position? What that position did you choose, and why you choose the position?
So I play forward, more preferably on the outside. One of my greatest assets as a player, it kind of Andrew was mentioning, is my speed. So I definitely like to use that on the widths and rather drive the ball end line and try and slot it back rather than being that person in the middle. I've tried playing like center mid or striker multiple times, and every single time I usually get moved out because I veer to one side. Like there is no in between. So I have always just loved, probably since I was young, like just being able to score the goals rather than playing defense and stopping them. I did have one experience when I was 12 playing center back for a season. It was the worst experience of my life. No hate to center backs out there. Huge respect to them. But I have I think that was like the first time I ever stood up for myself as a player to my coach because I was like, I hate this position. And it was he really only put me there because I was the fastest person on the team. He's like, if someone's gonna get by us, you're just gonna have to chase them down. So um speed has definitely been a huge asset of my game. So it's really nice being able to use that on the widths and help my other teammates score goals rather than being the one.
Well, that was my next question was that if you could be any other position, what position would you pick if you went forward? But I suppose centre back is not that position. I'm assuming, right?
Center back is not that position. Um if I wasn't a forward, oh geez. I've always wanted to try and be a center mid, but kind of like I said a little bit ago, like I always veer to the outside. I absolutely hate playing defense though. So get me oh wait, that's so bad. But get me out of the back line. I had a string of goalie also in my U12 career. So goalie was not my
Wow.
thing either. So probably a center mid if I had to give myself a
Nice.
new position.
I love that. It's like I said, we were talking a little bit about centre mids and how they've kind of developed, how the game developed, and the game changes. In your sort of opinion, if so, as we were talking about centre mids, and like, is there a particular player that comes to mind that you are like akin to, or you seem similar to, or is the player that you aspire to as a young footballer?
Well, not I don't this the player that first came to my mind when he said that was Rose Lavelle. Now I know she's a center midfielder, but ever since I saw her in the 2019 World Cup, I forget how old she was. I know she was really young in that World Cup. It's just kind of been like she's always been something super aspiring to me because I mean, there's been Alex Morgan and Megan Rapinoe, but like everyone knows who they are. Rose Lavelle, no one really knew who she was before that 2019 World Cup, and she made a name for herself very quickly. Did very well in the tournament, ended up scoring in the finals. So I just think her and her story, also being a girl from Ohio, OH represent, um, just something super aspiring. And like I love how she plays and what she does in the midfield, even though I'm not a midfielder.
That's
I
a
know.
great shot. So yeah, Karen, and
Roosevelt
you
is
there?
just cool too. Yeah, she's so
Yeah.
sweet. Rose is awesome. The way she plays too is so scrappy, and like I could see that you do
Hmm.
have kind of like a similar nature and play style that you do. And like, right, being from Ohio, can't beat it.
Exactly.
Final question from me, just on sort of players, as you kind of spoke about. Andrew kind of mentioned, obviously, one of the captains of the team. From your perspective, what makes a good captain, in your opinion? Like, what is it about a captain that is the strength and some of the values of a captain that you bring into it yourself as well?
Yeah. So that's actually like a really good question because before Delaware Rising, I had never had like a kind of leadership captain experience. It was never something I was in high school, so it was definitely like different stepping into that new leadership position and having to do because we had a very talented Delaware Rising team. So like I was extremely honored and I don't want to say surprised, but I was very honored to like be selected captain, but also very quickly had to adjust into that mindset of I need to be able to help lead my team, whether I'm injured here, not, or whatever it was. So to me, what makes a good captain, honestly, pushing everyone, I mean, it's kind of a basic answer, but pushing everyone to be the best. Um, Little things like at practice, not, I know we want to have fun and everything, but like we need to be able to focus. Like we had a goal going in, like you have a goal going into a season and you want to make sure you achieve that goal, and that goal is going to start at practice. So yeah, I think that'd be
Great.
like the biggest thing, honestly, is pushing your team to be the best possible version of themselves.
I think some of our listeners would, yeah, again, it'd be really inspiring for some of our listeners to kind of go with that mentality as well. That's a great answer. Andrew, I'm going to throw it back to yourself. I mean, I've just throw a question back to you, Andrew, while we're on this. Why did you pick Lindsay as well? Like, what were some of the attributes that you saw in her as well?
Yeah, so just a little perspective too for some of the listeners that are going to hear like about Delaware Rising. If you don't know about Delaware Rising, it would be helpful for you to like look up our website, and that will give you all of the great information. We also have vlogs, which Lindsay, I'm sorry, I still have a couple to edit yet from our previous season, but they're coming. They're
A
going to be
couple?
sick, and I'm working on them. Yeah, I
A
know. I probably
couple,
have like
okay.
4, 5, 6, maybe.
I
Holy
think you
moly! But
posted week 2 2 weeks ago, and the season's
it's
over.
it's real. I know. We've already won the championship, and now the
Yeah.
championship vlog is probably going to come
At
out
this
when like the
point,
next season starts.
just post the championship vlog. Forget the rest of the season. That's all that matters. That's
That's true.
all I want to see, Andrew.
That one will be pretty
That
sick
one
too.
in the
So,
semifinals game. Just put it all in one vlog.
bro, you don't even want the putt one? That was the best. What are you
Oh,
talking about?
see, so long ago, I don't even remember we did putt.
I know it's a rough life. So yeah, I got a lot of content creation and editing to do. But with that being said, there's so many like cool things about Della Rising. So if you don't know what it is, go out, check it out. But to answer Faye's question, so Delaware Rising, a lower league soccer team. We call ourselves a minor league soccer team because the weird system that we have in the United States, like if you say a lower league soccer team to just a general fan of sports, they probably wouldn't know like what lower league soccer is. And I didn't even know what lower league soccer was for like 5 or 6 years ago. So then explaining all that stuff. So we just decided to kind of like brand ourselves as a minor league soccer team because Americans know what that is. So with that being said, we've had the club around since 2020, but this was our first season that we were able to introduce a women's side. So we have a men's lower league team, a women's lower league team. So two separate minor league teams that compete in actually the the Northern Ohio Soccer League, which they both have separate leagues, of course. And then the exciting part is that our Delaware Rising ladies, they won the championship in quite dramatic fashion. So that vlog will be a pretty good one. So I am very excited to get into that one and start editing. But with
Definitely
that,
kept everyone on their
Lindsey,
toes.
I know. It's like it's gonna be so fun. Like when it comes out, everyone's gonna like be able to relive it. That's the dream.
No, that's exactly what I want to relive, Andrew. That moment of panic.
It is. It is. So the reason that I ended up selecting and helping bring Lindsey as a part of our club, you could see right away that she had leadership capability, just the way that she was interacting with other girls. So we had our tryouts. It was in winter time, which is not super fun. So it's a little cold outside. Thankfully, yeah, we were on turf, which made it a little bit better. And I think it was like rainy and windy. It was a rough time, like not a fun
The
time to be
snow.
outside. Yeah. So exactly.
It
We don't
was,
love that.
it was bad.
But like being able to like watch the girls interact, that's a big part of seeing if the individual that we're observing will fit in with our club, because we're not only just looking for skill. That's certainly helpful when we want to find good players, but we're also looking for players that can bring character to the club and will actually represent Delaware Rising in the best manner possible on the pitch, but also off the pitch. And that was one of the things I noticed right away about Lindsey. She just had that character and that leadership ability that hopefully she would bring to the team. And thankfully she did, and did an awesome job at that. So that was like how she got into the Delaware Rising side. But then once I was able to bring on someone to this podcast, I knew that Lindsey would be great because one, top goal scorer, captain, two great things a part of that. But then also I knew the kind of player she was because I was able to interact with her throughout the season. We did some interviews on the vlog as well. So just the way that she was interacting with the club, and she's just a fun person to be around. So like all of those kind of things made it fun. And I knew that she would be a great person to interview and give us some perspective on the women's soccer side, the Delaware Rising side, and just like an interested soccer fan, because sometimes it's tough to find soccer fans in the US, especially in Delaware. We have a lot of soccer players, but even some of those players don't really follow soccer. So we're trying. Now, I'm going to toss a question out to you, Lindsey, and this is more so about your career. So we've kind of given the lowdown in the intro of like how you've continued your soccer career. You even gave us the breakdown of what it was like being a youth player. I want to ask you one question first about your youth experience. So let's do that one. When you were in a youth program of sorts, I'm sure that you probably played locally somewhere for a youth club. What was that experience like for you? Was it easily able for you to find a youth club to play for? And then what was your experience like once you did find a club to play for?
So my experience, I kind of hated club soccer, if I'm being honest.
Sure.
I played for, I think, 4 different clubs throughout my club soccer experience. Um, all of which, like, I don't want to say like progressively getting more and more skill level wise, but like my parents were just constantly like, we're moving clubs because it's what's best for you. It's what's going to help you grow, do what you want to do as a player, even when I was 12 and I didn't know what I wanted to do as a player. So my club soccer experience, it was kind of a rough one, if I'm gonna be honest. Girls can be really mean sometimes. So they kind of like people I was like on one team that like girls were just doing it just to play soccer. I was like, that's really expensive just to play soccer if you don't, because like I was like one of the few girls on the team who wanted to go collegiately. And they were all just kind of really mean. So there I quit club for like COVID hit, and then I was like just not gonna play club anymore. And thankfully I was able to find a club team. I actually played for Polaris SC. I don't know if Andrew's heard of it. It's a newer club. They also started in 2020. Just like Delaware Rising, I was able to find Polaris. My friend actually set me up with them. And that's kind of even how I got into Otterbein, because my coach at Polaris is my coach at Otterbein now. So I had never looked at Otterbein before. Like I was like, I'm getting as far away from my house as possible, and now I'm 20 minutes north of my house. So picked the closest possible school. So but from like a club standpoint in Central Ohio, I feel like very growing up basically suburb of Columbus, there's so many clubs. I feel like every single year I am learning about a club that has been around forever, and I'm just like, I have never even heard of this club before. So yeah,
I would agree. There are like a lot of random clubs, but I don't see a club that does something super well, unfortunately. I would almost wish that there were like specialized clubs like, hey, if you're a defender, you know that this is a club and a coach and a style that will really train you to be a solid defender so that you can go
hmm
on and be a collegiate player. And that's like my
yeah,
experience. I'm a little younger, I mean older than you. So that means even back then, like soccer was still a thing, but there were not as many club options. And it was disappointing, especially when I was trying to know that I wanted to eventually be a collegiate soccer player, like trying to get to that level, like there just weren't the best options when it comes to clubs. So it sucks to hear that there's still like a not a great experience for club
yeah,
players out there, because like that really is what can make a difference for like making you a solid soccer player that will help you get to the next level.
yeah. It just like stinks because like club club sports anywhere are just so political and can easily ruin a kid's experience for the sport. So it's like you really just have to find that good team. And it's like what also stinks is like I always had that experience. It's like I would get really comfortable with the team, but then my parents were like, "This isn't what's best for you in the long haul. Like we need to move." So then I'd have to start all over, and then I'd get comfortable with that team, and then I'd have to change again, and then it just all. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's been through that. I know there's some people who have been at the same club their entire life, but that's just not realistic for the
Yeah.
growth of a player.
Yeah, the club structure in the US is interesting. And there are a lot of politics, which sucks because then
Yeah.
the kids slash players shouldn't be a part of that politics system. That should be handled by the administration, but of course it all bleeds over, and then yeah, we get
Yep.
tough situations like that. You did mention one thing about how club soccer, even in Ohio of all places, is expensive. It is very expensive to play club soccer for kids to play the game of soccer. It is expensive, and we're not talking like high professional level academies with tons of resources. We're just talking, yo, you got to spend a ton of money just to get some like average looking jerseys so that you can play fairly
hmm
competitive soccer. That sucks. And my question, actually, I'm going to throw this over to Faisal really quickly to give us Americans a perspective. When you play youth soccer growing up in the UK, what is that like? What is the process? I don't even know as like a semi-educated lower league European soccer fan.
Yeah, so a lot of it is there is. I think we kind of the way we kind of break it down, obviously under nines and the tens, and there's like a lot of local clubs, and they're quite small clubs, and they're what we kind of call what you've kind of called lower league and minor league, called kind of amateur football. So we kind of have the lower leagues are considered your kind of your championship, your League Two, your League Ones, and actual leagues. And what we have here are kind of amateur leagues, and what we have some which is an ongoing, it's not an ongoing joke, but there are kind of different memes, things people come across, which is like the Sunday League, and that is where people, for example, will play. It's your kind of rough and ready football. It's you've got your referees are in there, but it's a bit more formalized version. But other than that, within the area, within your area, you'll have your under 12s and the 13s. So growing up, you put into those kind of sports kind of teams where you play every Saturday, and it's considered meant to be fun. And it's like, everyone's a winner. And it's that kind of light kind of element of it. And as time develops and you might get scouted as time kind of comes on, then you kind of bring into those areas where you're brought into academies quite young. And this is something that we'll touch on in another episode. Then you're kind of brought into an academy, which could be, for a great championship team or even a Premier League team. You spot it from early. You're kind of cultivated in that time. You're given sort of education on the side. You're taught as well a curriculum, like a UK British curriculum, and studying as well as playing football as well. And that's more of a formalized education of football and academies. And that's how the academies system would work. And then you obviously got your other areas potentially where you might play on a Saturday evening, kind of take it from there and have it as more of an enjoyment kind of game and side of stuff. So it's like a formal side, but also like a smaller side, which is more kind of on a Saturday evening and it can bring it to play. So yeah, it's an interesting one and it's a very different from that side. A lot of it is you pay a weekly fee on a Saturday, and there isn't really much else you do need to kind of pay for. But this, from my opinion, and in terms of you kind of spoke on your original question to Lindsay as well, is I mean, the expense of it. Are you buying kits? Are you buying what is the expenses attached to I'm just trying to get my head around. What I can see is you bring your boots, you bring your kit that you wash once a week, and you just turn up and play football. That's from the UK perspective. But how is it different in the US?
I mean, I wish it would say how much you pay for club soccer covers literally everything, but it probably only covers 25% of it. You pay probably two. I mean, it's probably even more now. I haven't played club soccer in 3 years, and I think even when I was only doing like half a year, it was almost 2 grand. I'm like, that's insane. So you pay for uniform, bag, socks, whatever you need to play, practice gear, whatever that is. And then I guess the other stuff just money goes to the club, league fees, tournament fees. But that doesn't even include how much you're spending on travel, how much you have to spend on a hotel if you're staying at one, what food you need to buy if you're going over. Just kind of insane.
And
Definitely did
hey,
not thank my parents enough.
you want to know why we have so many different youth clubs in the United States and there's not like a lot of lower league teams? It's because you can charge so much freaking money to these parents
Right.
who will pay for their kids to play soccer. That's why there's just so
It's
many youth options because they just want to take freaking money. I hate it.
But
it's
is
insane.
there opportunities for, like, as a parent? Say I was a parent, I wouldn't just. I'm sure you're not just paying for my kid. If my kid's not good at football, am I still just paying my, like? Is there no scouting option? Could I get picked for like a demo? Like, how am I getting scouted to the better leagues? Like, how is your trajectory as a young footballer?
I think
Like,
like in the tryouts, you can try out for like they have different leagues. Obviously, like I think the biggest one over here is ECNL. I don't know what it's something National League, and that's I think like one of the biggest, most competitive leagues. But teams will have like you have to like clubs have to qualify for ECNL. You can only have so many ECNL teams in a certain region, and you just kind of have to try out. Now ECNL has even grown to get more money to become ECNL regional, which has more clubs in it. So it's like how much money is ECNL getting a year? I'm sure money also depends on what league you're even playing in because ECNL is super competitive. They have showcases X amount of times a year. I know the MLS, their academy teams. I think you even have to try out for those too. But they have tryouts starting at like I think like U11. I'm just like you're setting your 11-year-old up to go to the MLS. It's like he needs to do his fourth grade math homework first, in my opinion. But like that's
And it's kind
insane.
of a bummer the way that that works too, because it's not like scouts are going out and looking for you like it would be in the
Yeah,
UK. It's more like, hey, my kid is probably pretty good. So I'm going to have you go try out for like an MLS Academy team. So I'm going to drive there, drop my kid off. They're going to do like whatever the trial looks like. Maybe it's a few days. Then if you're good enough,
yeah,
they will accept you and then you pay X amount of money for them to be a part of that program. Now, when you
exactly.
do get to like the MLS levels and things like that, I don't know if there are incentives or what that cost would be. I was never good enough to even think about that type of situation. But I would be curious to know how that money kind of filters down the more competitive you get, because from my perspective, especially like starting to think about like when I do have kids, I want them to play soccer. What is that going to look like? As you get more competitive and you want them to play in a more competitive situation, the money also increases that you have to spend to pay for your kid to play,
Hmm.
which just kind of sucks. Love that.
Yeah,
Love that soccer in the US is just all about money across the system. At least that's one consistent thing.
I
Love
think
it.
the same in the UK as well. It's kind of like grassroots football, right? But a lot of it is, there's a lot more stuff happening nowadays, especially in the Premier League, especially as well. And other clubs are looking to sort of contribute to the lower league teams and working with the FA and sort of the government supporting as well. So there's a lot of like grassroots club football that's being supported by huge bursaries and huge money. There's not enough money in it. I'm not saying there's, it's each, but there are areas that are getting money put into and looking to kind of perform and develop. But I think, like I said, I don't think there's, in comparison, there seems like a lot of opportunities. If you love playing football, it's not as competitive, perhaps, maybe as it is in the UK, where there is literally every kid, and there's not as many clubs in a short amount of like time. But in the US, like I said, you could essentially pay to get into a club of sorts, make tryouts, and get to where you want to get to. Right? I think that's the angle you can take.
Great. Love it. Love all this financial talk about how it prevents kids from playing the beautiful game. So, to bring us on to a lighter note, Lindsay, I want to talk about your soccer fandom. Do you watch MLS? Do you watch NWSL? Do you support teams in the US? Do you watch any Premier League? Any other leagues? What you got?
so when it comes to watching on TV, I don't watch much MLS. I mean, I mentioned this ever since they switched to Apple TV. Like, I am a broke college student. I go to a private school. I can't afford to watch a soccer game. But I will. I mean, it's probably more expensive to go to the game in person, but it's a better experience. So I like to go down to lower.com whenever I can. especially if it's a good game. Like I went to a FC Cincinnati game against the Crew last year, probably one of the best games I've ever been to. I was supposed to be at the St. Louis game last weekend, but I am an old lady and I don't stay up until 11. I think 11:16 was the kickoff time. Like that's ridiculous. NWSL, I have a Paramount Plus, so I've been trying to watch it more. I just feel like I never see the schedules anywhere. Like I try and keep up with Portland Thorns and OL Reign to the best of my abilities, just because like my favorite U.S. women's national team players are on those teams. So I try and keep up with those. That's Instagram and Twitter. I guess it's X now. It's not Twitter anymore. Whatever that is.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that one. Hold on.
But I definitely get a lot of my sports scores from them because I feel like I always miss a game because it's just not broadcasted here.
Are there specific teams that you are a supporter of, or do you just like to watch soccer in general?
I like watching all soccer. I am a Manchester United fan, so I will if the game's not at 6 in the morning, I will watch a good Manchester United game.
Nice.
There we go.
Yeah, and then I'll like watch like the other big Premier League teams. Like if City's playing like Arsenal or something, I'll watch that because I know it'll be a good game, and I pray for both their downfalls at the same time, even though that can't happen.
Same.
I want them both to lose,
Correct,
even if they're playing each other. But yeah, I try my best to I definitely keep up with the Premier League more when it's in season. Not so much like in the summer, whatever the preseason games they're doing now, but like the actual Premier League season. Champions League games I'll watch. Europa League I'll even watch when United was in there, but won't need to watch that anymore.
That's right.
There we go. We're out here now. Champions League.
You were talking about like some aspirational players, like some of the women's side for the USA that you'd like to watch, and that influences who you watch in the NWSL because of them. So my first question, which will be like a trail of questions that are all related. What is it like playing college soccer? Let's start with that.
Oh, college soccer. I mean, college soccer. I feel like I'm a Division III soccer player, so there's not nearly as much pressure on me as if I was some big Division I player, which is honestly extremely nice. And it was kind of like I have that school life soccer balance that I was wanting when I was doing my recruiting process. Because I don't want to say I feel like I'm in high school again because I'm not. I'm older than that, and obviously, hopefully more mature. But I feel like I have that same balance, and high school really set me up to be able to balance between soccer, school, and like I said, life. So it's honestly, I don't get too stressed out about it, but I know some of my friends do, but it just also kind of depends on what kind of major you are. Like I'm a math education major, so math gets a bit obnoxious at times, but it's always come easy to me, so I don't stress out about it. But I have a friend who's a nursing major, and when it's exam week, she's studying 16 to 20 hours a week. And I'm just like, I don't know how you do that. And I don't know how you do that on top of soccer either. So it's just kind of, I personally love my college soccer experience. Like it has been the best 2 years of my life, and I'm excited to get two more because this team is my best friends. And then we're super close with our men's team as well. So it's just a bunch of best friends that play soccer.
That's cool. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that you're having a positive college soccer experience because I know it can be a lot, like you have talked about too. So good. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. So then, to kind of wrapping this question up into what your experience is like, what is your advice for younger girls that potentially want to go to the next level to play college soccer? What would you tell them?
Oh, I mean, a huge thing before like you even like start the recruiting process is find out what you want in a school. Like I mentioned earlier, I was like I wanted to get as far away from home as possible. And obviously I didn't do that. But it was like when I was up until March of my senior year, I was constantly on the fence of if I wanted to go to a big school and just not play soccer anymore, or if I knew if I played soccer, it'd be at a small school because I needed that school soccer balance. So that's just like a big thing is like, what do you want from a college? That's one major thing you want, and then what do you want from your coach, because not every single coach is going to be the same. Do you want, like, if you didn't like your club or high school experience, do you want something completely different from that coach? Do you want something the same from that coach? And then another huge thing when it comes to like your recruiting process is try and meet the team as much as possible. I did not have that experience because my recruiting was COVID. Well, post COVID, not post, but the fall after it was COVID. So I did
Okay.
not meet a single. The only team I met was actually the Otterbein team. So just so happened turned out that the team I met happened to be. I went on so many different college visits, had so many different phone calls with coaches. Didn't meet a single other team besides that. Didn't even meet one of the coaches because he got COVID.
What was your like COVID like experience as a college soccer player, like going through that? I'm sure that's stressful.
So as a college soccer player, we didn't. It did really affect the beginning of my college season. Actually, we had a COVID outbreak the week of our season opener my freshman year. So we lost our, I think we lost like 7 of our 12 starting 11. We were supposed to play Denison at Denison,
Oh,
and we lost our goalkeeper also. We didn't have a backup keeper. I forget. I just don't think we had one. So we took a field player who played keeper when she was like younger and made her a goalkeeper again. And then she got COVID the day before the game. So then
oh,
we had
Nightmare.
we had to grab another field player. We ended up having to cancel the Denison game because we're like, we don't have a team. So then our next game was so much better. Case Western, constantly nationally ranked Case Western, with half of our
yeah.
starting lineup out. Starting center back, she was our captain. Still missing both of those goalkeepers. Missing so many people. We have our, I mean, the girl who played goalie is like my best friend. She's 5'2", like a 5'2" goalie in the net, and it was just it. I like to say it was a nightmare. We only lost 3-2 to Case Western, first game
Wow.
of the season. It was. I can't complain about. I mean, yeah, it sucks we lost, but Case Western's really good. I think they were in the national finals actually this year, if I remember correctly. They lost to John Hopkins, so they're pretty good, if I do say so myself. So it was definitely from a college standpoint. After that, I mean, I got COVID tested 5 times in a week. We had to get tested before every practice after that breakout. But besides that,
Wow.
like COVID never really affected my college experience just because I was my freshman year of college was fall of 21. So it was like kind of a year after everyone, I don't want to say everyone had like let loose a little, but like it wasn't nearly as bad March of 2020. Now my high school COVID experience was everyone was constantly on edge. We I mean, I think everyone was the same. We started in June and we were in what we called pods. You could only have no more than 10 people in a pod. We weren't allowed to share soccer balls because no one knew what COVID was, and you could apparently transmit COVID through soccer balls because my feet have COVID, obviously. So we weren't allowed to share soccer balls, and then we had to do weight. Everything was outside. We had weightlifting, but it had to be outside. It had to be in masks if you weren't actively doing something. I just remember it being I remember doing fitness on Fridays and we would do 120s, and as soon as we finished the 120s we had to put masks on. So you're just like trying to catch your breath but you're breathing in this, it was absolutely terrible. And then like the season came around and like before every practice we were just constantly like we have to play every single game like it's our last, because if someone got COVID, the team got shut down. So it very well could have been our last. So it was just kind of like, I don't want to say it was like a terrible experience, but like definitely not the way I wanted my senior season to go out. Um, but yeah, COVID definitely took the hit. I remember I also had to play a club game in masks. We went to
Oh
North
man.
Carolina my senior year, North Carolina, December, and it was like 3 days before we were supposed to leave. North Carolina was like, if you're going to be in this tournament, you have to be wearing a mask, and you got carded if you weren't. It was
Wow.
that was a brutal weekend, but it's like definitely interesting. Like I'm happy. I don't want to say I'm happy it happened, but like I like that I have pictures of it. So I'm just like, this was a time in my life. I can't just ignore it. And I mean, my kids are going to learn about it one day. Like, that's going to be in a textbook, definitely, because it just
Yeah.
changed so much. No one really knew what was going on, but they just kind of had to go with it like life was normal when it wasn't. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. Yeah, it was a crazy time. I'm glad you made it through, and I'm also very glad that it hasn't really impacted your college soccer experience. So that's
Yeah.
good.
Never got
But
COVID either.
Faisal, I wanna,
Knock on wood.
dude, lucky you. I've got it like 3 times. I hate it every time. It gets freaking worse and worse. COVID's stupid.
I'm
Ugh,
I'm surprised I haven't. I've definitely been like face to face with someone, and then the next day they got COVID, and I'm just like, I don't know how I haven't had it. My sister missed my senior night for soccer because she had to test for COVID that day, and she didn't get the results back in
oh,
time to know if it was COVID or not. I think it ended up being
jeez.
COVID. My mom's gotten it, and I'm just like, I don't know. I've that our second goalkeeper field player we trained. I went to dinner with her the night before she got COVID. I was like, I don't.
Man,
I'm just immune.
you just,
I'm
yeah, you got
definitely
special
knocking on
genes, I
wood right
guess.
now. Knocking on so much wood. But
Well, FaZe, I want to hit over to you real quick if you have any other questions before I drop my
Yeah,
my
yeah.
big core question.
Yeah, I had a couple to pick up on, as you kind of mentioned. So all that stuff about kind of COVID and how you're kind of battling through football, going through that, that must be quite a sort of a toll on you psychologically at the time. On a day to day during games, like how do you psychologically come back from like losses, or how do you come back from say you've given the ball away, or this you score an own goal, or something of that some sort of happened? What is it? What is the mental side of being a footballer and bringing yourself back to that front line and scoring goals again?
yeah, so one thing that's helped me a lot, we my team in high school, my senior year, we struggled a lot with not coming back after losses and just like losing to one team and then letting it get us down. And like I said earlier, like every game could be our last. We can't have that mentality because we don't want to end a game getting absolutely destroyed 5-0. Then our season has to end the next day because someone got COVID. So my coach actually, I forget what the book was called. Oh, it was The Power of a Positive Team by John Gordon. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but we had, I mean, at the time it was absolutely brutal to end practice 30 minutes early to go inside and read a book together as a team and take notes on it. We were like, come on, Tara, like we aren't in school anymore. But just a lot of the stuff that we learned in that book, it was like a complete like mentality shift in our team. It was like honestly interesting to see the things that we were able to accomplish after reading that book, and just that mindset of you just need to be able to let it go and forget. um I know Andrew's talked about the goldfish from Ted Lasso before. He uses that as motivation sometimes, so it's that same concept, like you have to just be able to move on and forget, which is stuff I try and do as a player. I can get very down on myself very quickly as a player, but I'm just like, if I'm going to sit here and make a mistake on the field and mope about it for 20, 30, 40, however many seconds, like the game's still going on whether I like it or not. Like I'm just, it's going to have to happen. I'm going to have to, whatever happened happened, and now I just have to get over it and move on with my life and keep playing the game. Obviously, don't give up.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it kind of ties into what you can say about kind of aspirational stuff, about what advice you'd have to other people as well. I think that's really important. A lot of it is day to day, even as well. You can bring that up when you do take a loss, whether it be at work, for example, or wherever it's day to day. It's about that how you bounce back and come back to that first line, going back to the front as well, which is great. Yes, that's great. And one of my final couple of questions was just earlier today. Obviously, your dad kind of was like in a little bit in, just in the background. So
You did not
he's
get the
obviously a big
text to not
supporter.
come in my room.
No,
Texted mom.
we love that.
Dad doesn't come in my
We
room often. I text my mom. I was like, "Don't come up." And apparently, the one time a month my dad comes into my room, it's when I'm doing something. So thanks, Dad.
No, that's great. It kind of brings me into like the support they offer. Like, how has it been? How supportive have they been? And how has it been sort of having your parents just behind you every step of the way?
Yeah. So my parents are definitely my biggest supporters, whether I like to admit it or not. Now, they neither of them played soccer growing up. I think my dad played basketball. I think my mom ran track, so I get the speed from my mom. So my dad is definitely the one who pushes me the most. Now sometimes it really makes me mad because he'll like do it after a game where I'm really frustrated with myself because I usually admit if I'm not happy with how I played, and then he'll be like, "Yeah, you didn't." And I'm just like, "Thanks, Dad." But it's just kind of like that tough love. It's just kind of the relationship that we have, and he's constantly like, it's not like it's supportive, but it's like I said, tough love. Like he is like, you need to do this better. I want like he's like, you play scared now. You do this. You do like he's like, you can't do that anymore. He's like, I've seen you play not like that. And he's like, what happens to that? And I'm just like, I don't know. And then I get mad and then I ignore him. But he's right. As I hope he can't hear me because he's right. And I would never admit that he's right, but he is. So my dad definitely pushes me the most. Now I give my mom the most crap when she doesn't show up to my games. I think my mom got COVID in the fall and I gave her crap for it. I was like, you're missing, or they both missed my first college goal. So I give them crap for that all the time.
What a moment!
Yeah.
Wow, that's
They had like we were watching on the live stream. It was a home game and they weren't there.
not the same.
Not
It's not the same. It's not the same. But
before I pass it on back to Andrew for the question, you kind of touched on it a bit, like, but what has been to date so far, like your best moment? Like, what's your highlight moment so far of your playing career?
I mean, at the moment, I am still like so. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but like so in like starstruck about winning the championship 2 weeks ago, 3, 2, 1, whatever it was, whenever it was. I am. It was just. I think it's just so much better because I don't know if Andrew even knows this. I missed part of my family vacation for this championship. I was like,
I did not know that.
Wow!
my parents
exclusive.
my parents left for vacation that Friday, and a month before, I booked a flight down to leave Monday so I could get to this before I even knew I was in the championship. I was totally taking a shot in the dark. Booked a flight, $120, which not bad for a flight, I guess. $120 flight. Not even gonna know if I'm in it, but if I'm in it, I'm in it. If I'm not, well, that stinks. But thankfully I was in it, and thankfully it turned out the way I wanted. So definitely right now, I think my best moment is just winning this championship. Now I think part of it has such a big impact on me because I was able to have such an impact on this team. Like Andrew mentioned earlier, I was captain, which I had never been before, so that was a huge honor for me. And then being able to score as many goals as I did. But another one might be my freshman year at Otterbein. One of our rivals is Capital University, down just 20 minutes south of Otterbein in Columbus, Bexley area. We have like a big rival, like all of Otterbein has a rival with them because I guess it dates back to whenever I don't know, whatever it is, we battle for an oar every year, whatever the oar means. But my freshman year, it was to win our conference regular season title, and one of our All-American I was on the bench for this entire time, which people would be like, oh, why do you like this so much? But it was just All-American, breakaway to goal, scores the goal. She turns around and sprints to the bench. And it is just, someone has it on video, just the entire bench. Someone on the bench has it on the video, just the entire bench celebrated together. Then once the game ended, just everyone sprints out, massive dog pile on the field. It was not only to win the conference, to win the oar, but it was also our charity match that year. We do a charity match every year. And that charity was for, it was the Marshall Would Play charity, who was a soccer player at Olentangy Orange who had suffered like a serious injury in his from like a terrible tackle. I think he ended up breaking his neck or it was something really bad. But Marshall was able to be in the crowd with his friends and family, so we were able to not only celebrate the league title, beating Capital, because beating Capital is always the best feeling in the entire world, but also being able to do it in front of who we were raising money for. So that was another great moment.
Amazing.
That's sweet.
Amazing. I felt like I was there. That's what I felt like. I felt like I missed out. I actually missed out. Andrew, back to you. What you got for us?
All right, I appreciate it. Yeah, I always do love like the heavy celebrations when you know it means so much. It's always so fun and so exciting,
Yeah.
especially when you're like a part of it too. Love it. I have two questions. My first one, if you have 20 seconds to say you are either for promotion relegation or against it, what do you say? Go.
Okay, hold on. I need 20 seconds since it started yet. Promotion like in the US in general
Yes.
in
Yeah.
the US.
So I'll give you just like a little like synopsis and give you like a few seconds to think too. So
Okay.
I am a big proponent of an open system in US soccer. That means promotion relegation. So for example, your MLS could be the top tier, like the Premier League is over in England, and then you have your lower leagues underneath of it. If you win and you're like in the top three of that league, like Delaware Rising was, for example, we would get promoted to the league above us. That's more competitive. And I am a big proponent of having that type of pyramid structure of promotion, relegation, and open system here in the US. And I would be curious to hear your thoughts on that because it's a hot topic for us soccer fellows here.
I don't I'm not against it. I think it definitely keeps the game of soccer interesting. Like I watching the what it was 20 what year are we in? We're in 23, so it would have been 21-22 Premier League season. I watched the Everton game where they fought relegation, and that was I mean, if fans care for it, like obviously it's keeping the game of soccer more exciting. Soccer is so much more popular over in the UK than it is in America. So would that help bring people in because we have no promotion or relegation in any sports here, right? I don't think so.
Right.
So
Nothing.
I think it would keep it interesting. Now it would even be more interesting because Inter Miami's at the bottom of the table right now. So would Messi go to a second league? Would Messi play in a
Exactly.
second league?
How
Like,
crazy
could
would
you
that be?
imagine it? I feel
That'd
like he'd
be
leave.
it's it makes it just so much more exciting that way. Like exactly, like you have those big teams that
Yeah,
could potentially drop
and
down
it's
to the
like you're
lower league.
constantly fighting. You're constantly fighting for like would Inter Mi
Mm.
I don't want to say I don't want to sit here and call out Inter Miami, but it was like how they're still at the bottom of the table, right?
I'm pretty sure they are.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I'm pretty sure. So I'm just like, would they be fighting more in the season, knowing that like they're gonna get relegated if they don't?
Yeah. But what is there to
So
play
it's just
for?
like,
Right.
Like,
exactly,
what you're just playing for?
like
You're just playing for championships. That's literally it. You're not
you're
playing
already at
your
the
life
bottom of the
as a club.
table. You're not qualifying for the MLS Cup.
Yeah.
Like you have the season's basically over for them. There's no point.
Yep.
So it's just like
Exactly.
it keeps it interesting.
And it
I'm
yeah,
sure
exactly because it
Everton would
doesn't
have given up much
matter.
sooner too.
Yeah, and it just like if there's no promotion relegation, it doesn't matter. So like, what's the point? Oh, you lose. Like that's not a big deal. And then all these stars that are
Yeah,
coming over the MLS, there's this consistent quote that they all say of like, "Oh, when you lose, it's not as a big deal over here as it is in Europe." Well, no,
Yeah.
frick, because you
exactly.
don't have anything that happens if you lose.
There is
Okay, all right.
yeah. You lose 3 points and that's about it.
Yep. Yep. So that's a stressful topic. So I was just curious on
Yeah.
where you view that. So my final question, and probably the final question of this interview, will be what is it like being a female soccer player in the US? Do you feel like you have the same opportunities as the male counterparts, as like development wise, ability wise, all the resource wise? What is it? What is your take on all that?
I mean, I feel like it's definitely not equal. Like I can say that I do not have as many I mean, it's probably I don't know if it's changed now, but growing up I did not have nearly as many opportunities as my male counterparts may have had. Now, like I said, it could have gotten better, but I know growing up, like for the men's team that you could play ECNL, you could play DA, which DA I think got ended with COVID, which was just another giant league. You can play MLS Next now, MLS whatever the academy version is now for the women's side. I don't even know if they have NWSL academy teams. So it's like I don't do they? I have no idea. It's probably something I should know. But they definitely didn't when I was growing up. So I definitely hope that's something that gets better because I mean there's just constant I don't want to say arguments, but constant talk about the lack of equality in the women's and males like the woman to male ratio and like that whole like fight with I mean women's team just finally got their equal pay after how many years and that constant fight with title 9 and everything so just hoping one day they can get to that equal but as bad as it's I don't think it's reasonable if the game of soccer keeps growing as bad as it sounds like the men's side would have to stop at some point for the women to catch up to have equal opportunity. Now, from a pay standpoint, I think they'll get there, but from a club soccer opportunity to get better, if that makes sense.
I agree with everything you said except that last one. I don't even think the men's has to stop growing, which it's certainly uncapped, at least in the US, because our country is so large. Look at England. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the size of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, and they have a massive pyramid structure of thousands of teams. We could have such a
Yeah.
cool, unique structure in the US of promotion relegation that allows an open system for more clubs like Delaware Rising to have a symbiotic relationship of a men's side and a women's side that both compete competitively in different leagues and then can do the promotion relegation open system balance back and forth and provide resources kind of the way that Delaware Rising does as like a shared club where you have resources that funnel through the club and then go to both of the teams in the same way. I think having that open system allows that. And I don't think, again, the men's side has to like do anything different development wise. Like they can continue to expand and grow, and they should, because then that would bring more opportunity to the soccer as a whole. But also, then that's like a charge for clubs that only have a men's side to also bring up the women's game at the same time. Because I think it's like
Mm-hmm.
the same type of relationship. If the women's side of soccer was awesome and the men's one kind of sucked, then I think it would be the responsibility of the women's side to help bring up the men too. Because ultimately, like the goal with Delaware Rising is to provide more playing opportunities to enjoy the beautiful game for every person that wants that. So, example of that is if the men's side is doing well, we want to make sure that we have the women's side going the same pace, the same opportunities, playing the same competitive way, same team experience, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that is so possible in the US, and that should be talked about and pushed more forward. Like you can do it. Like Delaware Rising, we're just volunteers. We're just making this up as we go, and we already have like forced the league essentially to have a women's league, because this is the first time that the league was actually in place for the clubs to have a women's team to play in the league. So like if we're just volunteers doing this, look at the MLS clubs that could be doing all of these cool things. I could yell about this for a long time, but I think that overall the system, the opportunity is there. We just need to adjust the system to make sure that it works for both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm glad
Tell the
to
NOSL to get more women's teams. You guys had
I
men's team had 13 different teams to play, and only Panthers doesn't even have a men's team, so it's just like only three of them, including Delaware Rising, had women's teams.
Yep. I
I mean, a
am
more exciting
already
season next year.
Yep, I'm already telling him that because I want to play more teams. Exactly. And then that provides more activity, more opportunity for women around the state of Ohio, which we want to see as well. And then hopefully that will
Mm-hmm.
lead to more leagues and more opportunities and more levels that our women's players can grow and develop as well as they want, if they want to continue their career into like the upper, more competitive echelon of lower league soccer. So hopefully that will happen. I will continue to yell at them, just like I'm doing on this podcast. Awesome. Well, Lindsey, I want to toss one last thing to you, and then I will sign us off. And overall, through your college experience, your high school soccer experience, what do you think is like one of the core things that you have experienced that really made you fall in love with the game more? I know that's a deep question. You can think about it. And the reason I ask that too is a little bit selfish. Being a coach and then also like helping to run a club, I want to try to emulate that more and really get more people to fall in love with soccer, whether that's a player, whether that's a fan, whether that's a volunteer. So I'll call out Dan. Dan has always wanted to be like a broadcaster, which I just found out recently, but he volunteered and helped us call games on the stream. He's awesome. We really appreciate that. But like helping him fall more in love with that by just being a volunteer and casting games, but like just those tertiary things around the sport, like being able to get people more excited through those is so much fun. So I'm trying to pick people's brains and see what they enjoy the most and how we can shove more of that into Delaware Rising and my coaching experience too.
Jeez, things. It's like the hardest question I've been asked.
I know. I should have prepped
The
you
athlete
for
in
this
me just
one.
wants to say winning. I was like, you can't control if I win or lose or not. But I would be lying if I said I haven't looked at the pictures from the championship multiple times over and over and over again.
Same.
But it's like, it's just, oh my gosh. I don't know.
I will say, if you would have like flipped this question back to me, I don't know what I would have said either. I would
I would think the
probably
same thing.
I would probably say like the relationships overall. Like I've made some of my best friends through soccer and through Delaware Rising. Like some of my best friends now are only in my circle because of Delaware Rising. I'm still best friends with some of the players that I've played soccer with growing up in club soccer. FaZe and I, we've bonded and become even closer because of our Manchester United supporterdom. So all that kind of stuff. So I think my answer would be
Supporterdom?
relationships. Yeah, I made that word up. It's
Is that a
fine.
word? I was about to say supporterdom.
I was going to say very similarly. I think I would say community from my side. I think wherever I've kind of gone, say you go into a new workplace, you go into a new environment, or even you're going down to watch the game, you'll always find fans. We'll find people who just love games and love football, and I think that's what I kind of found, and that's when you're out there with a couple of mates, for example, watching a game, and there's people around you left, right, and center you don't know, and Man United score or win the game, you're just like hugging people you've never met before. And I think it's things like that community feel of like, hey, look, we all love football, we all have a shared identity. And I think that's more and more, you get more people doing that. So that's what I would say, as I was thinking that as well. So that's some tips for you as well, Lindsay, thinking that might get you thinking as well a little bit.
I mean, like, I feel like I completely agree with both of your answers. Like, all of my friends have all been connected to me one way or another through soccer. Like, my best friends, like, I played high school soccer with them, and some of them are going into their senior year of high school just because I met them when they were freshmen in high school. But like, I'm still so close with them now, even though I'm starting my third year of college, and I'm still like supporting their journey every step of the way. Like, one of them just committed to Louisville to play soccer, and I've never been
Wow.
so excited for her. Now I will say one of my best friends goes to my rival, Ohio Northern, so that's a bit tough sometimes, especially when we lost to them in the tournament this year. So that was a bit upsetting, but I still love her either way. Um, but I mean, definitely all my friends have been connected through soccer one way or another, and then I've been able to make friends off of them because they're friends with people who they met through soccer, even though some of them haven't even played soccer since they were like 7. But we all have that mutual connection of playing soccer, and definitely, I mean, definitely the connections. I mean, we do fitness testing every year at Otterbein, which is the worst. At 7 a.m. in a hot athletic center, no AC. It's brutal, but just that team environment. I mean, it's the second day of preseason. If you're coming in as a freshman, you hardly know anyone, but everyone is cheering for you as if we've been together all year. And it is honestly one of the best things. Like, it's terrible running the beep test. Don't get me wrong, but we have a fairly large team, so there's probably 10 people run the beep test at a time. So having 26 people lined up on the cones, like just screaming for you, cheering your name. People, if you're the last person standing, people jump back into the beep test to run with you. And we get coaches. We have like upper seating in our athletic center. We have coaches from other teams coming to watch our team just cheer each other on, just because of that connection that we have for one another. Even though, like, even if you're just like screaming woohoo or keep going, like, I don't know some of the names when I just met them. Definitely didn't know the names when I was introduced to 30 girls my second day of freshman year, but it's still amazing. We do the same thing when we're playing in games also. We have a goal for every game that we never want to hear the whistle off kickoff, just because we want the bench to be so incredibly loud. We have had teams complain about how loud our bench is. And I was like, if our bench is quiet, something's wrong, because people on the field feed off the energy of the bench. And it's like, just like how you feed off the energy of the people around you. If everyone around you is sad, you can't be happy. So it's the same way. If people aren't cheering for you, how are you supposed to help give them a reason to cheer?
I love it.
So
It's true.
yeah.
All right. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much. You've knocked this interview out of the park. We appreciate you joining us on Nutmegged. And fam, we are out. Thank you all, listeners, for joining us as well. Hopefully that you are able to get on a pitch somewhere. Until then, just don't get nutmegged. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Good luck, guys.
Bye.